afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us here on the KTN News Desk on this 14th day of February 2017. Happy Valentine's. Many thanks for joining us here on KTN News Desk. Top on our stories at this hour, the Senate Health Committee has given CS for Health, Cleopa Mailu, an ultimatum to ensure that the doctor's officials who have been jailed are released by today, and they've ordered him or asked him to report back to them tomorrow at 10 a.m. with the progress report. Rita Tinina will be joining us live from Parliament with details about the engagement between the CS for Health and the Health Senate Committee led by Senator Wilfred Machage. We will also be speaking to Murimi Mwangi live from the Kericho Law Courts, where a ruling has just been made on civil servants who are intending to vie for elective posts in August 8th polls. And Murimi Mwangi will be giving us the way forward on that end, as well as we will be monitoring the mass voter registration exercise. Today is its last day. We understand that there are long queues across the country. Our reporters from various regions will be keeping us up to speed for that. Many thanks for joining us. Our sign language interpreter is Meresha Witi, and I am Akisa Wandera. Now, Health Cabinet Secretary Cleopa Mailu now says he will consult the Attorney General on the possibility of having the 7 jailed Doctors Union officials released from prison. He said this when he appeared before the Senate Health Committee, where he was taken to task over the prolonged paralysis in public hospitals owing to the medics' strike. The senators want him to resign, accusing him of losing control of the ministry. Let's listen in to what went on.
And I want to be very clear, was not written by the ministry. And it is important for people to direct questions, because this document was written by the mediating team under the chairmanship of the chairperson of the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights. It's not a ministry document. And therefore, if it is their minutes and their document, I said that I'm persuaded to believe the chair wanted to document the discussions they had. It is not correct to apportion this document to the ministry. Indeed, the major stakeholders in these discussions are the county governments. And therefore, this is not my document. It's not a Ministry of Health document. This is a document of the mediating committee drafted under the chairmanship of the chairperson of the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights. And therefore, the members of that mediating committee signed this document. If there is any defect and any lack of procedure, I think it's for them to answer. Therefore, it should not be attributed to my office or in extension to the ministry. The fact that the PS was not there is one issue. But signing of this document, that is a document of the mediating committee, and that is why the chair even asked, why was it not produced? And we agreed that that was the honors of the mediating committee to produce this document when they feel it's appropriate. I want to say that I hear the senator and sentiments about the protracted nature of the strike. I agree with her that I share the same sentiments that I feel we haven't been able to deliver to end this strike. I do not derive pleasure in that kind of thing, both as a human being, as an officer, and as a doctor. It's a painful situation. That as it may be, I hear you. But as the chair makes his ruling about this afternoon, I had intimated to the chair and this committee that the bishops of the faith-based organization were coming for a meeting at 2 o'clock to address the matter and to see, since they are the ones who are supporting the nation, to address that matter. I want to
Cabinet Secretary for Health Cleopa Mailu there appearing before the Senate Health Committee, of course, based on the recent developments with the engagements with the doctors. Let's now speak to our senior reporter, Rita Tinina live from Parliament for more details. Good afternoon, Rita. The Cabinet Secretary seems to be on the defensive after the latest turn of events. What did the members of the Health Committee of the Senate put him to task on?
Well, the CS found himself on the hot seat. The senators wanting to find out why the doctors' union officials were jailed in the first place, accusing him of failing, of losing control of the Ministry of Health. And what they wanted to know was what is he doing currently to ensure that the union officials are out of jail, since as long as they are in jail, negotiations to try and end the current pay dispute cannot continue, since he's the one, the union officials are the one mandated to hold negotiations with the negotiating team. And so he promised the committee that he was looking and doing everything possible to ensure that they're out of jail. This morning he says he met with the Attorney General, he met with other legal officers from the government side as well as the mediation team, and he says they are working on ways to ensure that the doctors are out of jail as soon as possible. The committee members gave him an ultimatum, told him to ensure that the doctors are out of jail by this evening, and he should come to report back to the committee tomorrow on the progress so far. But what also stood out was some members, Zipporah Kitoni, Senator Zipporah Kitoni, also wanting the minister, the cabinet secretary, to talk about reports. The media has been reporting about wrangles and infighting in the Ministry of Health. This is something that was alluded to on Sunday for the first time by Kotu Secretary General Francis Atwoli, who accused the minister, the cabinet secretary and the principal secretary of not reading from the same page. He said there was infighting and wrangles between them, and he asked President Uhuru Kenyatta to separate the two. So the senators today wanted to find out what exactly is going on between the CS and his PS. And Muraguri, the cabinet secretary, told the committee that there was not any infighting in the ministry. He termed it as insubordination. He says he appointed the principal secretary, Nicholas Muraguri, to head a mediation team from the government side to sit on the table with other parties in this mediation dispute. But the principal secretary then wrote him a memo saying that due to national duties, he was not able to take that position to head the mediation team from the government side, and that he termed as insubordination. And members of the committee, the Health Committee of the Senate, then accused him of losing control. They were arguing, look, if your principal secretary cannot take commands from you, then what are you doing at the ministry? Senator Boni Halwale asking him to resign if he has lost control of the ministry. Now he is to appear before the committee tomorrow, accompanied by the principal secretary, Nicholas Muraguri. The senators also wanting to find out why there was an agreement that they say would have led to a CBA this time round to try and end the dispute. It was signed on Sunday night. The principal secretary, who is the accounting officer for the government, did not append his signature to that, and so they were terming that agreement as illegal. It will not count anywhere. And so he will be having to explain all that when he appears before the committee tomorrow. The CS also pointing out what he termed as several flaws in these negotiations. He says, first of all, why the CBA, they have not been able to come to an agreement on the collective bargaining agreement, which the doctors want implemented, is the fact that that CBA does not include the county governments. Health is devolved, but he says the CBA does not include the county governments anywhere. He also says that CBA was not approved by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. He also says there's another issue they have not been able to agree. The doctors want the Kenyatta National Hospital, the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, as well as the Kenya Medical Research Institute to be included in the CBA. The CS explaining that these bodies that have boards that control them, and so they cannot be part of the agreements that will form part of the CBA. Akisa.
7 doctors' union officials have spent a night in jail, and as you mentioned, the Senate Health Committee has asked the CS or has given him an ultimatum to ensure that they are out of jail. What are some of the options that the CS is likely to explore to ensure that this happens?
Well, he says he's going to do everything possible to ensure that they're out of jail. But currently it is a legal matter. They were sent to jail by the courts. And that's why he says he met the Attorney General, the Chief Government Legal Advisor, as well as other legal officers to look into the options of what can be done. The doctors are already appealing that court decision, but we can only wait and see what the Attorney General, the other legal officers propose as a way forward to ensure that the union officials are out of jail.
Rita, thank you very much for joining us. Our senior reporter, Rita Tinina, joining us live from Parliament, giving us details on the engagement that the Senate Health Committee has had with the CS for Health, Cleopa Mailu, on the paralysis of the health sector in the country. Let's now focus on what doctors in Nakuru had to say on the jailing of their colleagues who are officials of KMPDU. They were jailed yesterday by the courts. Let's cross over there and listen in to what the doctors had to say.
The public is suffering, and it is the very poor that are not accessing services. It has been claimed that the senior doctors are the ones that are doing private practice and engaging and seeing the patients that would have been going to public hospitals. But today we are gathered here to tell you that on the 15th, we will down our services, inclusive of the private services, and the doctors in private clinics will also close their clinics on the 15th from midnight. And we urge our members to seek our general public to seek health care elsewhere.
Kuonyesha tuko pamoja na madaktari wenzetu wale wako kwa public sector, wale wa private sector. Siku ya Alhamisi watafunga shughuli ya kuhudumia wagonjwa kwa hospitali zao na hospitali zingine za private kwa masaa 48, kuonyesha hatuna nia ya kutomaliza huu mgomo.
So we are not talking about pay here. So giving 40% increase to doctors to return to work and ignoring loopholes that continue to perpetuate impunity in the health sector is what we are refusing.
From the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive to sit down and come up with a solution. Otherwise, with this kind of push and pull, we are hurting Kenyans.
Now to coast, doctors at the coast have also weighed in on the strike and are voicing their solidarity with the jailed union officials. Let's listen in to what they had to say.
We want fair treatment to whatever is happening to our colleagues. We were supposed to finalize the CBA by the end of this week, but it is the negligence part which has been played by the government itself which has led to our colleagues being taken to jail. The only way out for these negotiations to continue is for our CBA 7 be released unconditionally, and this is when matters will proceed. We have decided, both as government plus the private practitioners, and these ones here now we are involving each and every hospital which is catering for our patients, to actually lower down their tools. I think the best thing I can tell you is, since the government thinks that going for registration is more important, I have asked also my doctors to take time out and go and register themselves and offer no further treatment to any person.
All right, let's now speak to our reporter, Francis Ontomwa, live from Mombasa, which is a follow-up on that resolution made there by the coast doctors after the jailing of their colleagues. A very good afternoon to you, Francis. And we understand we're still trying to get Francis Ontomwa, who will give us details on the same. Doctors across the country have been reacting to the jailing of 7 of their colleagues, who are also the officials of the Kenya Medical Pharmacy Pharmacists and Dentists Union after they were jailed yesterday by the Employment and Labor Relations Court Justice Helen Wasilwa for contempt of court. This has caused an outrage from various quarters in the country, especially from the doctors' unions as well as those in the private sector. But Francis Ntoma will be giving us details on what was said in that particular press briefing by doctors at the coast. Good afternoon, Francis. Are we likely to see a prolonged strike by doctors, especially at the coast?
Going by what has actually transpired today, it means that we are headed for a real paralysis should actually nothing be done to avert what we are headed to. Private doctors in the coast region today came under one umbrella, and they are saying that enough is enough and they are going to be part of this strike. And what they're saying is that on the night of the 15th of February, that is, should be tomorrow, they'll be actually paralyzing affairs at all private hospitals. And what this translates is the fact that what has been the last resort for patients in Kenya, or rather in the coast region, will now be actually, they will have actually no other option but perhaps to go nurse their ailments back home. The doctors made quite a categorical statement. They were saying that they are now standing in solidarity with what is happening, and of course buoyed up by the fact that their colleagues are serving time in jail. And what they are petitioning is the immediate release of their colleagues from jail so that they are able to come back and negotiate further and find an amicable solution. But they're saying it was too drastic an action to take them to jail. And basically they're also condemning what transpired yesterday when the doctors were trying to keep vigil, stand in solidarity with their colleagues. They say that it was too much of an action by the state to try and silence them actually. And that is what they were saying. And what actually we are looking at is a huge problem, because some of the busiest facilities since this strike began were private hospital. In Mombasa specifically, we are talking of hospitals such as the Aga Khan, the Pandya Memorial Hospital, and having services paralyzed at these particular facilities, it means that we are actually headed to one hell of a time here in the coast region.
Francis, thank you very much for that update. Francis Ntoma joining us live from Mombasa. And as he says, private doctors have joined in and have said on the night of the 15th of February, which is tomorrow, they will also down their tools in solidarity with their colleagues who have been jailed. Let's now move to that story that Kenyans are still talking about. A group of doctors who last night converged at the Railways Club for a night vigil in solidarity with their jailed union officials were dispersed by police. The group of about 200 doctors was joined by other members of the public who chanted slogans vowing to continue demanding for their rights. The move follows a court ruling yesterday that triggered the beginning of a month jail sentence for the union officials for contempt of court. The doctors, who were joined by other human rights activists, among other professionals, agreed to disperse but vowed to press on with their demonstrations. The government has maintained that the collective bargaining agreement, CBA, the medics are basing their strike on is illegal, citing grounds that the same was not registered in court. The strike entered its 72nd day today, with legal experts saying the same may last longer since there can be no negotiations without the doctors' union officials.
They should leave immediately.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And usually we know that we have the anti-riot police, but we can see now you are surrounded by GSU. Why the paramilitary, sir?
And they have guns. You want to kill people. You want to kill people.
Our 7 officials are in jail. They're in different jails. You can't say where they are. We cannot even trace them. We have tried to go visit them. We can't find them. So as you continue the night vigil, you can see police cars walking in. There are so many police cars, GSU with guns. They have said it has become a police state. We are waiting for them to give us further instructions. We had planned to have a night vigil, but now it appears we shall be deserting.
That happened yesterday night when doctors were dispersed by police. And of course, we continue following up this story for you here on KTN News. But at this point, let's take a short break. Don't go too far. We still have a lot more lined up for you here on KTN News Desk. Welcome back. You're watching KTN News Desk. Many thanks for staying with us. Civil servants seeking to run in the August elections still have time to remain in office after the Labour Court extended orders halting their deadline for resignation. The Employment and Labour Relations Court in Kericho this morning allowed for the full hearing of case challenging resignation of public servants 6 months to the polls. Let's listen in to what happened in the court this morning.
The High Court and courts of equal status have separate and definite roles and jurisdiction, and this cannot be crisscrossed. This was observed in the authority of Karisa Chengo as follows. It deemed the provisions of Article 165(3)(a) leave no doubt that the High Court has unlimited original jurisdiction in criminal and civil matters, save those reserved for the two specialized courts. Nowhere is it provided under the Industrial Court Act or the Environment and Land Court that these two courts have jurisdiction to deal with criminal matters other than those matters reserved for the specialized courts. If there has been any intention, nothing would have been easier than specifically stating so. They do not have jurisdiction to deal with matters reserved specifically for the higher courts, and the reasons for that are obvious. It is their submission that this is one such case. It is the submission of the respondents that the present petition is one such case, and therefore this court lacks jurisdiction to determine the same. With Article 165(5)(b) in mind, one begs to answer the question as to whether the subject matter of this application and petition are indeed matters employment and labor relations or strictly restricted to the jurisdiction under Article 163(3)(d)(1). The petitioner submits one way, while the respondent submits the other way.
All right, let's now speak to our reporter Murimi Mwangi live from the Kericho Law Court, who was in court during the delivery of this particular ruling. Good afternoon, Murimi. Thank you for joining us. What exactly does this ruling mean for civil servants intending to vie for various positions in the August 8th polls?
Good afternoon, Akisa. The immediate upshot of that particular ruling is that the IEBC cannot disqualify civil servants that have not yet resigned pursuant to the initial provision of the that particular law that is now in contention before the court here, that which stipulated that civil servants have to resign 6 months to the election, a deadline of which was on Tuesday last week. Besides that, the ruling also means that civil servants that are eyeing political positions in the August 8th general elections are going to earn their salaries for the month of February. Remember, pursuant to the initial law or the initial provision of the provision of that law that is now subject to the case that is before court, they ought to have resigned by Tuesday last week. But the ruling, of course, comes as a result of an application that had been filed here by the IEBC and the Office of the Attorney General in that particular petition, arguing that the Labor Relations Court does not have jurisdiction to hear disputes which are with regard to interpretation of the law. And the judge here ruled that the issue in question here in that petition filed by a civil servant from Kipkelion is one that falls within their jurisdiction, being one of a dispute between an employee and the employer, in this case the government and a civil servant. And of course that touches on human rights, which is part of what the courts are set to enforce, including the Labor Relations Court. Akisa.
All right, Murimi, thank you very much for that update. Murimi Mwangi joining us live from the Kericho Law Courts, and he'll definitely be bringing us a comprehensive report on the same and the implications of that ruling in our subsequent bulletins. Let's now get into sports. Sergio Aguero offered a reminder of his value to Manchester City as they moved to second in the Premier League with a 2-0 win at Bournemouth. Raheem Sterling grabbed the opener from close range on the half-hour mark, having been denied by a brilliant Artur Boruc save 2 minutes before. Aguero netted late on to give the citizens a much-needed win. All right, to wrap it up on that note, for our KTN Home viewers, many thanks for joining us. But remember, we still have a lot lined up for you as we monitor the last day of the mass voter registration. We'll be speaking to our reporters from the region on the same, and of course, the stories from the international front. Our sign language interpreter has been Meresha Owiti, and I am Akisa Wandera. Good afternoon. See you in a bit.